Well, let's discuss all of this with Cornelia Meyer, Chief Executive of MRL Corporation. Welcome to the briefing. So if we start with Argentina, Lebo pointing out there in her report that this is a story that has come around again and again for Argentina. They need this money now to help them in the short term, but what will happen in the long term?
Well, that's the thing. They need this money. There's a once a decade they have a default of the country, and that's when you have that much debt. And you know what's happening is the emerging market rout after the Turkish lira crisis, and nothing seemed to work. They went up 5% with their interest rate, to the highest interest rate in the world, 45%. The peso still tumbled, so they need to have this money from the IMF dispersed quickly. But when you look at it, they also have a debt payment coming up the next year, which is 24.5 billion, and they're getting 50 billion from the IMF. It's going to be tough, and the measures need to be tough, and inflation is rampant. So they really need, maybe this is an opportunity to put the right measures in place to go from this boom to bust economy to a more stable economy. The IMF can help them with that. But in the meantime, you know, their middle class is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because at every crisis, the middle class gets squeezed out. And what makes for a stable society? A strong middle class.
Let's talk about the North America Free Trade Agreement now. And we were hearing earlier from President Trump, from Justin Trudeau of Canada, that obviously they want to reach a deal by Friday. That's a self-imposed deadline on the part of the White House. But what's your thoughts on this new deal? I mean, markets are quite excited about the fact that trade deals are being done as opposed to tariffs being slapped on.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, it's good that they came to an agreement with Mexico. It was very important for Mexico to come to an agreement. The local content obviously went up from 68% to 75%, and then you have this minimum wage thing. For Canada, the minimum wage thing is less a thing. It's about dairy access, and for Canada also, I guess what they also are worried about is will Trump get rid of the tariffs on steel and aluminium, because they're the largest, you know, the largest exporter to the US imports by far the biggest quantity of steel and aluminium from Canada. So this is quite important. So I guess it's in everybody's interest that they come to a deal. In the end, trade deals always go down to the wire. They will probably come up with something. But was it worth all that angst? And you know, it was tough for the Mexican peso for a long time. If you look at it, for Mexico, the Mexican peso was in bad shape when this trade skirmishes started.
But the NAFTA agreement hasn't been changed for years and years and years. And many would argue, you know, so much has changed in that time. And so much so much cheap labor is being hired in Mexico and not the US, etc., etc.
But when you look at it, about 6 million jobs in the US are tied to the NAFTA deal. Because, you know, when you look, especially car industry, these parts, they go back and forth. So it has not just cost the US jobs. I'm sure it has cost some, but it's also made them a lot of jobs. They've gained a lot of jobs from it.
Cornelia, thank you for you now. Cornelia will return later for our news briefing. We have quite a few other stories to get our teeth into.